We'll have that one.
Tony hasn't got one.
Sorry, are we all settled down now?
Yes, marvellous. Thank you very much for coming along to this Q&A session. I hope you all enjoyed your day today here at Amberley Museum. And you can't come to Halloween in the evening because we have to pay extra for torch batteries. Anyway, that's another tale. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to just introduce this Q&A session. Mr. John Glen. And a couple of Herberts over there that I think you know. Mr. Matt Wood. And Mr. Nick Fenwick. Right, over to you guys.
Right, thanks guys. Everyone had a good day so far? Yeah. Good, it's going to get better hopefully. Oh, blimey, that's not a good start, is it? Look at that. That's a good start. Right, hang on a minute.
Right, planning, preparation. Prevents.
And as well, hopefully you've had a good day, both of you.
It's been lovely so far.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic. So we've got a few questions. We're going to start with John first. So obviously throughout your time as director, you always seem to have the rumours circulating that Roger wouldn't be coming back, and the amount of screen tests you have to do with different Bonds, especially with A View to a Kill being his kind of a swan song. So how did you manage this, and was there any danger of him leaving, or was it pure speculation?
Well, Tony will agree with me that when I got surprised everyone in the industry, including myself, when I was appointed director of For Your Eyes Only. And my first instruction from Cubby Broccoli, the producer, was find a new Bond. So I toured the world, screen testing all kinds of hopefuls for the role. What I didn't realise was it was a kind of a game that Cubby was playing with Roger to keep his money down, because his demands were getting higher and higher with each picture. And so Cubby made this sort of elaborate plan. He was a great poker player, and he rather used me as a dummy in a sense. I had no idea. I went out looking for a new James Bond, and I tested a few sort of hopefuls, and some established actors and some new actors, young, as yet sort of not established actors. And toured America, Australia, you name it, everywhere I went. It was a great, lovely trip, but at the end of the day, Roger got the job, which I think Roger was pretty canny. He was a pretty canny man when it came to dealing for money, you know. It's an art form, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're glad he came back and did one more, because I think it suited Roger rather than Tim. I think the last of it, A View to a Kill, suits him more than it would have done Tim. Yeah. Also, David Bowie was supposed to be the main villain, supposed to be Max Sorin, wasn't it? Yeah. What was the story behind that?
Well, David Bowie was a big star. He was kind of a bit of a mystery star, really, in the music world. He was very, very, very successful. And he came down into our office in Albury Street in London, and Cubby interviewed him, and it became very apparent very quickly that the sort of money he was earning would preclude him from working 6 months on a James Bond film. They earn such huge salaries, these music artists, that we couldn't compete. You know, we couldn't pay him the money he would earn in 6 months, for instance. But a very charming guy, and he did do a movie called Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, was it? I think. Yeah, in Japan. Eventually, he did that, and that was a reasonable success. So he loved to, you know, he really, his ambition was to do a feature film, and he would have been, I think he would have been quite a great villain, really, in a Bond film. He'd certainly have been off the wall, wouldn't he? He'd been quite unusual.
Yeah, he might have sung the theme tune as well. So that was possibility.
I'm not sure that would
were there any other actors who were sort of nearly cast as a role in A View to a Kill that were almost there, but for some reason couldn't do it?
Yeah, there was I remember his car, not what it was, but there was quite a famous New Zealand actor, I think it was, Sam O'Neill.
Yeah.
Sam Neill, who I tested, the 3-day test at Private Studios, no expense spared, and did a fantastic test. And at the end of the day, it was all part of this game that Cubby was playing with Roger to get him to keep his money down, which was a shame for the actors concerned, but I didn't know it. Cubby was a great poker player.
Absolutely. We're going to go to Tony as well now. So obviously the film went to San Francisco, and you went with John Richardson and a few other people there. Barbara Broccoli was there as well. You had to do some work focus pulling as well for that shot, to get the shot of the blimp.
We flew into San Francisco and we went straight from the airport to the Golden Gate Bridge on a recce, and then about 3 days later we went back to the Golden Gate Bridge. And while we were standing there was it a British airship? British Airways airship or Fuji? Fuji. There was an airship flying up and down over the bay, and we decided, Tom Besler, who was the associate producer, went off and somehow managed the camera, and we stood there, and I did focus and God knows what, and we did this shot of the airship flying towards the Golden Gate Bridge, and I think you actually used the shot, didn't we, in the end?
Well, no, we actually, we used a shot of the Fuji airship, but we shot it in such a way that it was backlit and you couldn't see Fuji, fortunately. It was just a black outline, and we were able to use about 2 or 3 shots, exclusive shots in the film. The rest of the films we did at Private Studios, we had 3 mock-ups of the Golden Gate Bridge, various sizes.
We actually went up on top of the Golden Gate Bridge. You was John Richardson, I think, and myself.
It's the most amazing sight when you get on top of the Golden Gate Bridge. There's a little 2-man elevator that goes up the stanchions either end, and we went up. It's quite claustrophobic, and you've got to be quite friendly with the other person who's in there. You step out on the most incredible view you can imagine. It's like a string, and you look at the support from the ground, but when you actually get up there, it's about 6 feet in diameter, and we all took turns going up there and hanging on the line for grim death. And I'm looking down at 2 rows of traffic going across the bridge, and then suddenly underneath that, a ship goes through underneath that, and it is quite breathtaking.
I think it's 700 feet from the top down to the water. And John mentioned the elevator operator. The elevator was a tiny tube up inside one of the arms, and the operator I had a bit of a belly, so you're standing face to face as you slowly go up.
It's brilliant. Also in San Francisco, you had to set a light to their city hall, which is, you don't really get an opportunity to do that on film often. So they give you permission to do that.
Tremendous cooperation from the fire chief.
The mayor, Diana Feinstein, who died a couple of years ago, she was the mayor of San Francisco at the time. And I went to see her, and the first question she said to me was, "How much money are you going to spend in San Francisco?" And I said, "Between $4 and $5 million. She said, "You can do anything you like." So I said to her, "Well, does that include setting light to City Hall?" She said, "Even more so." She said, "It's okay with the fire chief, it's okay with me." And we did get fantastic cooperation. I can't think of anywhere in the world where you could have gone, and in London, for instance, they got very tight, strict controls on what you can film and where you can film. In San Francisco, if you spend the money, you can do anything you like.
But just the fire, racing the fire engine around the streets with the arm swinging, I mean, to get that cooperation was tremendous. Probably couldn't do it now, but
Yeah, we had to close down practically the city from midnight onwards. We used to shoot from midnight to about 5 in the morning, and it was like the city was ours for the midnight hours. And my second unit director, Arthur Worcester, is no longer with us. He was a very ingenious cameraman, director. And he shot all that daring stuff with Roger swinging on the arm of the crane from the fire engine going through the town. And he got wonderful cooperation, he got some wonderful material.
Brilliant, fantastic. Were there any particular scenes that both of you enjoyed filming the most out of that film? Is there anything that stands out? You go, well, I was really proud of this one, or this scene was particularly enjoyable not to film, or things like that. What do you reckon? If you could pick a scene now.
What do you think?
I remember it was outstanding. I mean, we had so much going on.
Yeah, Tony and Tom Posner, the associate producer, were the backroom boys in a sense. They were making things happen for the active unit, the shooting unit, so that things fell into place. We weren't kicked out of anywhere and what have you. And as I say, we got wonderful cooperation. And I think probably for me, the highlight of the film was the Golden Gate Bridge. Because it was unique. I don't think anyone, I may be wrong about this, but I don't think even the Keystone Cops ever did anything on the San Francisco Bridge. Anyway,
Okay, now, yeah.
yeah, so, it's such well, I think it's one of the wonders of the world, really. It's amazing they ever built that bridge. They lost quite a lot of people who were killed during the making of that bridge. It's unforgiving. The structure was so high, and it's all done with wire. The structure that supports the bridge, as I say, was about 5 feet in diameter, and it's full of these wires, just quarter-inch wire, which was woven on the spot and fed into the tubes, and then they forced grease inside the tubes so that they wouldn't rust and break eventually. I suppose one of these days it will do. It'll fail. They'll have to put new wires inside or something. But the thought of that, of bringing that bridge is such an important transport link in San Francisco. It's a wonderful achievement, engineering achievement.
But all the locations we used were so complicated. It was, Iceland was okay because that was on the unit that was on the icebergs out in the. But you think of the parachute and getting BJ Worth to jump off the top of the Eiffel Tower, and the closing down for those stunt sequences we did around Paris, we probably couldn't do it now. And San Francisco, and it was all quite hair-raising stuff, wasn't it? Nothing easy.
No, a lot of logistical challenges, and I think it's one of those exotic Bond films where you go to different cities around the world, Paris, San Francisco, and it's the escapism as well, what you expect from a Bond film. So the finale on the Golden Gate Bridge is always going to be very iconic, and there's not many films that can pull it off, and here we are 40 years later talking about it, so the impact of what you guys have achieved there has really shone through.
I remember when we were setting up the jump from the Eiffel Tower. What we did was we had a sort of on the set of Pinewood, we had a diving board, and I walked onto the set one day, and BJ Worth was practicing jumping off this diving board, and I was horrified to see this diving board, and I said to him, "You're not thinking of putting that on top of the Eiffel Tower, are you?" And he said, "Well, I have to," he said, "to clear the superstructure." And I jumped. I said, "You can't do that." I said, "It's a world-renowned monument, and you can't stick a diving board on the top." But if you look at the film today, you'll see there's a diving board. At least I did manage to reduce it. But the irony of that was that 2 or 3 days before he did his jump, a young couple, a girl who'd never jumped before, jumped hand in hand off the Eiffel Tower without any diving board, cleared the superstructure and landed and ran away before the police could arrest her. And it must have been, when BJ heard about that, it must have been, he thought, did I really need that diving board or not? But I suppose he's got to look after himself, but there is always an element of danger in doing those stunts. And rather them than me, quite honestly, but that's what they do for a living.
And conditions had to be pretty good as well. You couldn't, in a wind like today, you couldn't do it.
Yeah, definitely, because obviously one little slight wind change of direction, then you're shooting off in a different course. And with the jump that obviously that young girl did that put the production into jeopardy? Because all of a sudden that must have caused a few
No,
problems.
fortunately, we got away with it.
Oh,
It wasn't reported, if I remember, to the police. I think we kept it quiet. We kept quiet to avoid us losing our provision.
I think it would have put the shoot in jeopardy had it been unauthorised, been authorised by us. But fortunately, it was just a couple just doing a prank, you know. And people are trying to jump off the Eiffel Tower all the time. Most of them trying to commit suicide, not trying to survive. But it must be a constant worry for them in France, because it's such an iconic image. Someone wants to kill themselves, they do it in style, they jump off the Eiffel Tower.
Talking about France, there's a few deleted scenes from the film that didn't make it. There's one where Roger is with, obviously Bond's with M in the police station. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah.
And it's very much, yeah.
That proved to be unnecessary in the end. You know, you do. Generally, we lost very little footage that we shot on Bond films. We were pretty tight, really economical, if you like. Thanks to Tony and his crew, you know, they had to cost everything, and we had strict budgets, and we had to make them for the money.
Yeah.
And there is a discipline, because in a film, when you're dealing with highly paid actors, if you go over schedule for a day, it's not just going over a schedule for a day that costs all the crew and the studio. It's the overages you have to pay the actors, because they're out of contract. They're hired for, say, 8 days filming over the duration of a 6-month period. Or maybe if they're the star, they've got to, you know, maybe you're filming for 30 days or 40 days. But if the moment you stop, you go over your schedule, you know, you're in trouble financially, because then you're into real money, you know, penalties, God knows what. And the actors may not be available, they may be working on another film somewhere, or they may be doing a play in the West End or something. You have to be pretty disciplined, and you know, you just have to get a move on, you know, and be a good boy. Don't get carried away.
What was Cubby Broccoli like to work with? Because we hear lots of good things about him, and obviously the success he brought to the film industry with the Bond films. But what was it like working so closely with him?
Well, Cubby really was a wonderful impresario. He was a great comfort to work for, because he never burdened you with any of the problems, the financial problems, which he must have come against every single day. With the MGM, the studio in Hollywood, cutting down his schedule, his budget every film, and then questioning it when he's, you know, who spent $250,000 on getting a guy to jump off Mount Asgard? You're mad, you know. But of course, anyone who's seen The Spy Who Loved Me, I shot the sequence with the ski parachute jump. It's one of the iconic scenes, one of the best 10 stunts ever performed, you know. The studio would stop me doing it, spending money. Cubby had that nerve, you know, he was a great poker player, as Roger would testify. And he would he wouldn't blanch at spending $250,000 on taking a chance that it would work. I mean, quite honestly, we could have easily walked away from Mount Asgard and the Arctic Circle without anything. I had one chance, take one, on that film, and that was it. We never got another chance. In fact, all our equipment was left on top of the mountain. We couldn't, the weather was so bad, atrocious, and we had to abandon all our equipment. And it was only like 2 years later that National Geographic sent someone up there, and they said, we've retrieved all your equipment. And we said, well, don't say anything about it, because we'd already claimed it on insurance.
Before we open up questions to the audience, what we're going to do, we've got a few images from, obviously, the film you hear from A View to a Kill, so I thought you'd like to see these. There we go, some last from the past pictures.
That's our football story.
And these are the Waye parts. It's Roger.
That's me, I'm back of me,
You? Yeah. See who's under there, I think someone's
That
under
might be
there.
Tony.
Anyway, there's a Tiny Roberts at the back of that. Roger. Hiding in the mine cups. You can see how overgrown it is now. Because all of that is a lot of plants and things. Or is that mic playing up again?
Which one is it?
I think it's that one. Yeah. Here's the gentleman with the pipe. Do you remember that?
It's Jerry Gavin. Jerry. Roger.
Great picture there, them two in the mine cart there.
And that's on the left, that's Danny, the prop man.
That's proper, yeah.
Danny was a legendary prop
Yeah.
man. He used to sweep the floor before he did the show, at Pinewood.
Oh, right.
And I used to say, hurry up, it's costing £1,000 a second or something. And he'd say, oh, and he'd then start sweeping twice as quickly.
That's a close-up shot.
Stan, she's a pretty girl.
Yeah.
Wasn't the greatest actress, but she
Spent a lot of time screaming in that film, didn't she?
She did. Yeah. That she could do.
She could do, yes. You're right there.
Good at screaming.
With the old one caught in action with Christopher Walken.
Yeah, Christopher Walken, he's a fantastic actor.
Yeah. He's one of the highlights of the film. He's acting in the film is terrific.
Yeah, it's good.
Clip.
That's
Short
me
clip.
with there it is.
That's not being shot.
Is that Patrick, that's a French actor, isn't it? Patrick
Yeah,
Berger.
that's correct, yeah. There's yourself, retired.
Yeah. There's a funny scene, there's a pit that Tanya Roberts was going to have to climb down this pit, so I had the camera at the base of the pit shooting up. And when Tanya kept us waiting as she was getting made up, and when she came out and started to descend the ladder, she took one look down and saw where the camera was, and then rushed off to the dressing room to put her knickers on.
There's a come down with it.
She needn't be bothered.
There's obviously the
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
She was a character. Yeah, she frightened Roger to death. She was quite a formidable lady. She's still around.
yeah. Quite a strong-willed woman, yeah.
Yeah. I'll keep avoiding her at the Henley Festival. She turns up. She's
Yeah.
quite a good recording artist in her own right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is the dummy model of her. I think
Yeah.
the south of it, the explosion.
Oh yeah, that's it. So she got blown up.
Yeah. coming to see the filming taking place, I think.
Where'd you get all these shots from?
I don't know. No, there are different people put them together online, and the team found loads of clips and put them together. So all from different sources. But yeah, no, they're good images. And all from here, which is nice. Whilst we're at Amberley, we can see it. That one's courtesy of Peter Bleakley.
That was real show.
Brings back a lot of memories, does it, seeing all these.
Yeah. The great thing about the Bond films is that we have many units. We might have four units working simultaneously on the film. You know, we have an underwater unit working out in the Caribbean. We have a